Welcome back to Growth Without Referrals, the podcast where leaders talk honestly about what actually is working to win clients beyond word of mouth. I'm Mark Ferguson, and today I'm joined by Lael Heinig, founder of Aveneera. Aveneera helps companies scale technical teams with aligned, high-quality engineering talent. Not just resumes, but real strategic fits. Lael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on here.
Absolutely. So, Lael, for those who aren't familiar with Aveneera, what do you do and who do you serve?
Yeah, what we are more specifically is a technology partner. So we work with B2B companies of a moderate size who have hiring constraints, essentially. The constraints can come in many forms, but at the end of the day, they need more people to do more work. So their deadlines are approaching, whether that's, 2 months from now or a year and a half from now, or they're going to be starting a new initiative. Either way, they have hiring constraints, and we work with them to, mitigate those constraints.
Okay. And you're a software engineer by background. And what led you to build Aveneera?
Yeah, my career, I spent 20 plus years as an engineer. I spent some time as in the management world. Basically, I came across an opportunity. I saw that there was an ability to find some engineers for someone in my network, and I did that. I found some people in South America. And from that, I started to grow this business. And basically, the reason that I took this on as more of a big long-term project was through my experience as an engineer and in management, always seeing those companies that we always want more. We want to achieve more from the business perspective. We want to get more outcomes, which in my world was, writing more code, producing more features so we could sell it to more people. But based on the economy, the ebbs and flows, scaling up, scaling down headcount was always a challenge. And I know one of those challenges is the cost associated with fixed headcount. And so my goal was to help in reducing those constraints and alleviating some of those fixed headcount restrictions or hurdles. And so then I wanted to, pursue this on a much bigger scale.
Okay. And how does your technical background change how you work with clients?
Well, I've been in their shoes, right? And so it's a lot easier to understand what someone is going through, and someone being, the company or maybe just that particular department of a tech firm. It's a lot easier if I've done that myself. So I've definitely had to hire people. I've had to fire people. I've had to look at roadmaps and come up with solutions. And if I hadn't done that, how can I speak the same language as the company that I'm trying to help? And that's from that perspective. When I talk to engineers that I want to place with some clients, I can also speak their language as well. I can understand. So if I'm working with an engineer who's at a client and they're struggling for whatever reason, I've been on both sides. I've been on the management side trying to, get team members to be cohesive in a group. I've worked as the engineer who either struggling or just struggling with the culture or, how this company works in particular, technology wise. I've been there. So I could speak to both worlds easily.
That's a great advantage. I like that. Staffing is traditionally a relationship-driven business. A lot of firms grow almost entirely through referrals, but this podcast is about growth beyond that. So let's talk about that. And you mentioned that Aveneera generated your first business through referral, right? At what point did you realize referrals alone weren't a scaling growth strategy?
When it comes to finding clients, you need multiple sources. I mean, that was pretty obvious to me from the get-go. One of the things that's popular today, kind of somewhat related in the mindset is, a lot of people have these side businesses because they want extra revenue streams. God forbid anything happens to their primary one, at least you have some other money or you're just adding additional resources there. And same thing with finding clients. It's great to have the referral network. That means you're not spending money on advertising and that kind of stuff. But you only have so big of a network. You only have so many like true connections. And, LinkedIn is great, but obviously if you and I have worked together for a couple years and now we're off in our own worlds, we have a much stronger connection than someone I don't have that connection with on LinkedIn, even though we are LinkedIn connections, right? So yeah, I knew from the beginning that I would need something more than referrals.
And you mentioned channels, right? LinkedIn is one. What other channels have you experimented with?
So naturally, there is you go to conferences. Conferences are not necessarily just like a staffing conference or something in that, but it's you if I was a software vendor providing software for finance industry, I'm going to go to conferences where people who are interested in financial software are going to be, right? It's a little bit harder in my world because there isn't just one type of conference that I can go to. So I will go to conferences. I like going to AI conferences. One I mean, for the very simple reason is I find it fascinating and I want to learn more about this. And, this obviously isn't going away. The other thing might be at that type of conference, you have other business leaders trying to understand AI and, hey, where can I use this in my business? So those folks are going there. That's just one example of a conference. Obviously, you can do direct emailing. It's not great. It's a high volume, low response, and it's not ideal because this business is about relationships, and that's not the best way to build a relationship. And then reaching out to people on LinkedIn is, like we talked about, is another avenue. Those are the main ones that I you know use.
And that makes sense. And out of those channels, what's worked good and then what's worked maybe not so well?
The direct email is not going to be a strong one. That by far is the least successful. LinkedIn is pretty good. I have spent some time using it, and I'm actually in the process of kind of changing directions on there to make more use of it. So I believe that will be a much more impactful channel than it has been up to this point. And then the conferences are hard. My background, as we discussed, I'm an engineer. I'm not a salesperson by nature, so those are more challenging for me. But I still go to them and try to shake as many hands as possible and find out what people do and try to listen for their problems. So see if I could be a help.
That makes sense. And when a company says just need a project manager or we need an engineer, what are they often overlooking?
Well, they may have already done some thinking into coming to that conclusion. We just need a project engineer or a project manager or an engineer. If I was working with them, I would want to know more what they're really trying to solve. In my experience as in management and working as an engineer, many times or a lot of times you get feedback from users about your software. And users might say, hey, I need a checkbox here. I need something on this page. And a lot of the time, they want that on their page because previous software had that checkbox and it did a certain thing, not because that's the best solution. And so the first step is understanding really what are you trying to achieve and what are you doing now to achieve it? And having that little conversation, maybe it's not so little, but making sure that conversation is had where we, in a way, kind of brainstorm what is the best way to solve this? Do you need a senior engineer or can you deal with two junior engineers? Do you need, many times what my experience as an engineer, sometimes the company would say, hey, we don't want to hire as many QA folks, people who do the testing of what the engineers produce. We're just going to have engineers do it. And that's not so fun as an engineer. And you're not going to get as good of testing from an engineer as you would for someone who enjoys that aspect of work, right? So I would want to push back, not so much that they don't need the project manager or the engineer, but understand more so we could get more specific to really achieve what they're trying to achieve with the right help.
Okay. I like it. And what separates an average placement from a transformational one?
Great question. An average placement, when you are putting someone on your team, whether that's an employee or a contractor, a manager or an individual contributor, I think as I've gone on more in my career, there's a couple things that I really look for is ownership, accountability falls under that, and leadership. And so the people that make great resources, again, whether it's a contractor or an employee, are people who excel in those two qualities. And so an individual can be, I think of them as a leader, not so much because their title says that they're a leader, but when they're taking on a specific aspect of work, they're the leader of that for their team. And they need to act as such. They need to be the ones with the answers or get the answers from whoever else has those. The other thing is ownership that I just said. And that is really ties into that is, they're in charge of something and they need to make sure that they're not just going, hey, I submitted my code and I'm done, but they're making sure that QA knows how to test things, making sure that the product owner, product manager, whoever that is that not only did they build something that works, but they built what the product manager wanted. So it meets those goals as well. And you're following up on all those things. And it really is, when you're at work, unless you are a complete freelancer and you do your own thing, you are working with a team of people. And we've all been on teams, whether we played sports, whether we're in the military, whether we're on that fourth team that had to do a presentation in high school on something. Everyone's been on a team. Everyone knows what a good teammate looks like and a bad teammate, right? You're going to be more successful if you have a bunch of good teammates who work well together and care about each other. So that, if I care about you, Mark, and you're struggling, I'm more willing to help you than if we're just two strangers where organizationally we're on the same team. And so that transformational placement is starting with a good cultural fit, someone who has the skills, but a strong cultural fit for whatever team they're going into.
So we've talked before,
Yeah.
and you're just not a body shop,
Right.
really strive to ensure that when you place someone, that there's a cultural and strategic alignment fit for that project. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, obviously I'm going to be speaking to initially when I'm establishing a relationship with a client, I may be speaking with someone at a higher level than the person who needs the individual resource, right? So I want to speak to as many people as possible to understand more about the team, more about the company, more about what they're working on. That's going to help me understand that cultural piece. And then when I'm talking to the engineers, let's just say engineers, whether it's QA or actually a developer, same thing. I'm trying to get an idea. Are they going to fit in well? You may have some teams may be more like strict and firm in how they operate. That requires a certain personality that some team that's more free flowing, more, we just want you to get this done. You're more free to operate. Are they using strict agile principles? Is it, or maybe not? And that's different. So I'm trying to get at those pieces as well when I'm trying to find who's going to match well with the client.
Okay. And thinking about your brand and visibility for Aveneera, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah. So I've had recently a pivot in that, and if I think of myself as just like a staff augmentation firm, that is just putting bodies in seats, and that is a commodity, and that's not so exciting for me. um, I really love establishing relationships, working relationships with people. And so my business is we're a technology partner. And so eh, I'm going to help you solve, as I said at the top of the program, hiring constraints. And we're going to find out what is the best way to get rid of those constraints. We're going to look at roadmap. Ideally for me, is we're going to be looking at roadmap down a year and a half, 2 years from now, a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever it is, and what is the best way to achieve that? And staff augmentation, I believe, is the way to do that in certain situations.
And what would you advise another technical founder trying to build a predictable growth engine versus waiting on introductions?
Well, I think my advice isn't necessarily specific to them, but starting a company is tough. It's a lot of people have a lot of good ideas, and there's been a lot of companies that were great ideas that those businesses no longer exist. So, one thing is, you want to be in love with your product, but more importantly, you need your customers to be in love with your product. Oh, y- you cannot be super married to certain features, if you're a software company building that, if the customers aren't going to love those features. But as far as one starting out, this is, certainly don't start a company if you think you're going to have more free time than if you're just, in a 9 to 5 working for someone else's position. But you have to be passionate about it. You have to be relentless in finding new clients, new customers, and you have to be laser focused. And at the end of the day, it is working on the activities that are going to drive your business forward versus working on the activities that you enjoy doing. And you know what? I say this now, and that's not because I'm super laser focused. I want to be more laser focused, but that is, I think for a lot of times we spend time working on activities, and at the end of the day, go, man, I got a lot done today
Hmm.
because you did a lot of things.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean you moved your business forward. And I think the more focused you can be and the more planning, whether it's just planning for that day or planning for that week or planning for the next 3 months of what is really going to drive your business forward and just working on that, the better off you'll be.
Great advice. Another question. If someone listening is stuck relying on entirely on referrals, what's the first strategic shift they should make?
Well, I mean, if someone's relying on referrals and they're, if it was my business and I'm getting a client a week from referrals, I may be okay with that. But if they are relying on referrals and their business is, it's not popping, it's not that restaurant
Mm.
where there's a 2 hour wait every night, then you have to take a fair look at your business. Are the referrals bringing in the business? Have you seen a decline in incoming referrals? They might still be working, but hey, man, 6 months from now, I don't think it's going to continue to work. I would say maybe taking a look at your branding. Is that brand still serving you today? Have you shifted somewhat? I don't know. Those would be two things. But if you take that fair estimate, or not fair estimate, fair audit of kind of how things are going. Not that it's good, not that it's bad, just you need an accurate audit. Then it makes it a lot easier to understand, well, what are some other ways that could help? And, do a little research on each and then, a deeper dive on the ones that you think that might help your business. And I would say go find someone who's been doing that. Maybe look at your competition. What are they doing? What the top leaders, what words are they using? What language? What are they doing a podcast? Are they have billboards outside? Do they do direct mailers? Are they going to conferences? What are they doing? And what can you do that will get you the same incoming leads?
Okay, I think that was very insightful. And if someone wants to connect with you or learn more about Aveneera, where should they go?
The best place is the website, aveneera.com, aveneera.com. That has the information. There's a contact us page. Send us an email, get a hold of us. I mean, of course, you can contact me on LinkedIn and me personally or the Aveneera page, but primarily the best place is to take a look at our website and contact me through there.
Okay. And And to our audience, we will be putting the website address, his LinkedIn at the bottom of the description. So please look at that. And Lael, thank you for sharing a real look at what it takes to build predictable growth in a relationship industry. Thank you for
No,
being
hey,
here.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks for the conversation.